Hello and welcome back, and that is right, today we want to answer a very simple question about Plex Media Server Pass. Do you even need it? There's going to be a lot of users that are moving away from streaming services, moving away from paid subscription models, because not only do they want to save a bit of bunts, but they also want to play their own media. They actually want to own it. And regardless of the fact that digital media has boomed in popularity in streaming and everything, and most of us watch our Netflix, watch our Amazon Prime and enjoy it, has to be said there has been something of a resurgence towards playing your own media and actually buying and physically owning it before a streaming services hand it over to one another, making things overly complex. And in this video, I'm going to talk about everything you get included with the complete free version, as well as the services you may be missing out on if you don't want to spend money on Plex Pass. Now, for those that aren't aware, when you do play your own digital media from something like a network attached storage system like you're seeing here on screen, or running from a much more modest system, or reusing old PC hardware in order to turn it into your own media server, your own streaming platform, you're going to be utilizing Plex Media Server then. And if we make our way into my list of things here, and we'll make our way into my list here on the screen, you'll be able to see that on Plex's own website, downloading Plex Media Server, very important, different from Plex the client device, is completely free. It is supported by a million squillion different platforms, and indeed these are just the ones listed on their official supported page. There are even more out there that may have just fallen off the grid in terms of support and updates, or simply being run homebrew or slightly hacked. They're in modified containers. Now, once you download this and you've got all of your own media on that system, again, a network attached storage system or other, the first thing that's completely free without you wanting to pay a single penny towards a Plex Pass subscription, which again will cost you anywhere from £3 to £4 a month to higher per month and per year. One of the things you do get included is the ability to watch your media. It would be weird if you couldn't actually just access your media on your device using Plex. All Plex is doing is packaging the media in a very presentable way, akin to something we've seen on the likes of Netflix, on the likes of Hulu, on Disney Plus, and more. It basically creates a lovely graphical spin there. And if you do want to go for just the free version and you don't want to pay a penny, you'll be able to play your media, you'll be able to scrape the metadata, and you will be able to, flicking back over to this NAS here, you'll be able to not only watch that media, but the system will scrape metadata found online and get you all of the information about that media, and you do not need to pay extra for that. That is included. You will not need a Plex Pass to do it. And if you want to play it on certain devices, more on that later, that will be free as well. Now, on top of not only enjoying your media, Plex has added in recent years some ad-funded streamable content, and some of those services are included for free. You don't need any kind of premium pass, but you will have to sit through ads in order to enjoy them. So, although I would argue a lot of users that go into Plex do not use these third-party movie and TV streaming services there, because they're not really rivaling, the Netflix budget we're seeing out there, I will say some of the things you find there are actually quite good. And if you go for some of the seasonal stuff, your Christmas, your Easter, your Valentine's Day, there's actually surprisingly good content in there if you err towards more seasonal stuff and none of the more general popular stuff, because you won't find it on there. But again, remember, it is ad funding, so it's free, but you're paying in your time there. Now, alongside that, streaming on certain devices is actually free. Now, I'll go into a little bit more detail about that later on, but if you want to download the Plex client, so that is a device that you're watching the media on, mobile devices, generally all of those require either a Plex Pass or a one-off payment. The models do differ, more on that later on, but not all the devices. So for example, if you're running a Windows device like the one I'm recording this on, and you want to access and stream the content from your Plex Media Server remotely or locally, the Windows app is completely free to download and run. However, for example, if you wanted to use Android, you're going to need to download it from the App Center, and again, more on that later on, but that is not strictly free. You can download it onto your device for free, and indeed, If you do use it, you do have the option of unlocking it, as mentioned earlier on, but if you don't unlock it, then what you'll end up with is limitations on the playback. You'll have only be able to access 1 minute if you try to look at photos. They will be watermarked, and the same goes for music. If you try to stream the music from the client application and it's on one of the paid platforms there, you will need a Plex pass, otherwise it will be severely limited there, so do bear that in mind. Another thing, DVR tuners, ultimately accessing live TV. Now, this falls into two categories, and I'm pleased to say that as long as you use one of the compatible tuners, and the list is, I wouldn't say that regularly updated, you can use the free Plex version to stream live TV easily. The thing you can't do is record it, but more on that later on. The same goes if you want to access it via a third-party device, such as using Amazon Fire TV or Chrome TV. If you try to use any of those services that have got that app, it is a bit hit and miss. Which ones will allow you to bypass through digital tuners connected to your server to access that streamable live TV. And again, regardless, you cannot record it on the free version, so bear that in mind. That is pretty much it if you're using the free version. It has to be said that in recent years, Plex, in order to fund its platform, any new developments have been earned into the Plex Pass subscription, and therefore you have to pay to utilise them. But at least you have access to the basic level features. For example, although we'll be talking about this more later on, when you are accessing your NAS server via the graphical user interface here on a PC and in a few other devices, you can still access diagnostics, dashboard information, and configure some of the options internally using the free version. Now, one of the things we'll touch on later on is transcoding, where a file is shaped on the fly to be better suited to the device you're watching. So if you own Avatar in 4K and you want to access it from an island in the middle of nowhere on your mobile, you don't really need that giant file, and you may need the file transcoded or converted into a better suited version. Now, on the free version of Plex Media Server, I will say you can convert those files. You'll be using a system known as software transcoding, which means it utilises the hardware resources of the server in question, in this case a Terramaster NAS that I'm running from here, and you use those hardware resources to reshape the file. But a lot of systems out there take advantage of graphics cards, take advantage of integrated graphics. These systems have got hardware components on board that are way better suited to reshaping that file. That is known, as I mentioned, as hardware transcoding. And you cannot activate hardware transcoding without a Plex pass. But again, more on that later on. Ultimately, utilising a Plex Media Server with just the free version, as long as you don't want to reshape the files efficiently using the hardware at your disposal, as long as you don't want to access the server with mainstream client devices outside of your home, and as long as you don't want to access a lot of third-party streamed content, the bulk of the free Plex experience will suit a lot of those users. But if you want to take advantage of reshaping those files, if you want to take advantage of a wider spread of different client devices while accessing the media, and have a greater degree of control and a improved user experience on your Plex Media Server device, then chances are you're going to go for a Plex Pass. So let's go through some of those standout features and add-ons that spending that little bit of extra bunts actually gets you with Plex Pass. Now, the cost of a Plex Pass will differ slightly from region to region and currency to currency, but $3.99 per month here in the UK, $31.99 per year, and for lifetime, $94.99 there. Now, that lifetime pass still currently right now allows you to have access to everything forever. We did a whole video on this when Plex was talking about slight money troubles and laying people off, and a lot of users, myself included, were debating whether the lifetime pass will still be in effect. That was about 6 months ago, and it is still in effect. It gives you all of the features of the annual pass, but forever. So if you think you're going to be using some of the features I'm about to talk about for many years to come, or at least 3 years, then I would recommend going for the lifetime pass. But what do you actually get? Well, this can be broken down, I would argue, into 3 different categories. The first category is quality of life improvement. So when we look at Plex Pass, there's certain add-ons and features that arguably have been borrowed, that's a nice way to put it, from streaming services. Again, your Disney Plus, your Netflix, your whatever. First and foremost, skipping intros. If you're using the free version, you won't have the option during the beginning of any of your box sets or TV series seasons. You know, here I am in the UK, I enjoy a bacon sandwich from time to time. You won't have the option to skip the introduction, and some of you might like that option when you're going through box sets like an absolute mofo, but I'll tell you, some shows, Parks and Recreation, 30 Rock, I absolutely love those intros. I'm not skipping them any day of the week. But if you like that, it's good to have it as an option. Next up, credits. Going through credit detection, credit skipping, all of that is built into the paid version. And if you've got things going back to back, you may want to include that option. And some of these, by the way, can extend to some of the subtitles as well, and some of the subtitle transcoding as well. We've got a whole video on that coming up soon that are limited to a Plex Pass account. Next up, auto lyrics for your music if you want those scrolled. And there's another add-on that I don't think gets anywhere near enough spoken about, Tidal, that's included with the Plex Pass, and indeed the free version of Plex. More on that later on. But if you're someone that's utilising Plex and PlexAmp and taking your music seriously on your Plex system, you may well want to dig into some of those extra add-ons for music lovers within Plex, because unfortunately the free experience on Plex for audio is pretty darn weak. And if you move away from conversions and transcoding audio transcoding, which again we're going to be digging into because we've not really done enough on that, I would say as an audio lover, Plex Pass, I would argue, gives more on that than it does on video for a lot of taking advantage and enjoying your own media across the network. Next up, cinema stuff like trailers, add-ons and stuff like that. Some, and again, it is very much a case-by-case basis on the media you enjoy, but if you have a Plex Pass, you can take advantage of a lot of those quality of life extras. You do get some of them on the free version, because when they are crawling the Internet Movie Database, the tvdatabase.org, when they're going through those websites, Plex didn't invent that media. So when they're crawling it, it makes it very difficult for them to monetize it. So a lot of the extra stuff, like trailers pulled from YouTube, that sort of thing, those are locked in to the paid version of Plex there. But some of this stuff, again, the general surface level metadata scraping, cover art, stuff like that, that's in the free version. But the deeper stuff that may be comparable to when you're watching media on Netflix and you want to watch the trailer or more info, they'll be locked behind that Plex Pass wall. Now, if you are utilising a DVR, as mentioned earlier on, you can use a TV tuner to access that live media. But as discussed earlier, if you are going to try and record some of that media and have it filtered onto your Plex media server for you to watch later, you're going to need a Plex Pass in order to record that multimedia. And again, it is locked, or at least limited, to different kinds of client device that you're going to be utilising there. Now, next up, accessing the NAS outside of the home, or just utilising the local area network on certain client devices. I will say straight away that if you're using anything approaching a mainstream platform, and I'm not just talking about mobile, by the way, but definitely some of the proper mainstream platforms, you will not have access to the full Plex streaming experience. If you're going to be utilising, say, an Amazon Fire TV, you can use a standard downloadable client app for that. But the minute you move towards the mobile apps, although as you can see you can download it, you will be limited, as discussed earlier, to 1 minute of video, 1 minute of audio, or the photos will be watermarked there. And if you are hosting your Plex Media Server NAS device for family members, for friends and more, each of those individual users are either going to need to pay and upgrade their individual apps to access the NAS in a fully formed fashion, or you're going to have to ensure that the Plex Pass account associated with the Plex Media Server NAS has those users added in. Otherwise, they will not be able to access the full extent of the media in the smoothest, most undiluted fashion. Which brings us, I would argue, to the second category of add-ons that you get with a Plex Pass, and these, let's face it, are for the nerds. These are extra controls, extra user interfaces, and basically another level of integrating and customizing your Plex Media Server system better suited to your needs and your broader multimedia family needs. So all of these can be broken down into the Plex NAS. These are the developments I mentioned earlier on at the Plex Labs area, where when Plex reinvest a lot of the money into improving their platform and to kind of close the gap between them and third-party streaming services. These are the ones that automatically end up on the Plex Pass platform. They need to fund that research and development for good or for bad, whether you like it or not. And within these, although there's lots of differential or incremental improvements, the standout ones, of course, we've got the Plex dashboard, which again, if you access via the desktop on a basic non-Plex Pass system, you can access this dashboard. But if you want to utilize it on premium devices or more mainstream devices, again, your iPhones, your Android devices, a lot of the time the Plex Dash app will require a Plex Pass account to access it there. Now, again, that's not much different from then us accessing our Plex NAS here and getting real-time information about our system, people accessing it more, but it just happens to be on more mainstream devices. Next up, Plex Amp, a greater degree of control, customization, and fluidity on the audio that you're going to be enjoying from your Plex NAS. And again, if you're using Plex because you are a serious audio junkie, Plex Amp is what you're going to be utilizing. And although you can use it with the Plex free version, you will be severely cut down in what it can do. And remember, that little word transcoding is going to come up later on. It's not just about video. Now, webhooks, again, for those that are going to be connecting third-party services from websites from different parts of business, I would argue, that want to access multimedia on this beautifully presented media platform, webhooks has become an incredibly popular topic now, because we've always been able to connect media services with internet-related services, but it's been about the security. And although security protocols and AES encryption, or in more recent fashion, AES-NI 256-bit encryption has improved, it's been about efficiency, not so much keeping it even more secure, but maintaining that level of security in the most efficient fashion so things aren't slowed down. Anyone that's ever used a free VPN will know that the cheaper the VPN, not only, not just the fact you may question its security, but the performance dips horrifically. Webhooks have allowed much more efficient AES authentication to be established between devices, and you can only utilize them with a paid Plex Pass. And then you've got things like Tatuli, I've never been able to pronounce that one, as Sub-Zero, which are development tools that allow you to monitor the dashboard of your Plex Media server and connect it with other services as well in order for you to get everything synced up, but also manage the system, its metadata, and its primary data in the most intelligent and diagnostic level fashion possible. And although there are third-party GitHub tools that allow you to do this without using a Plex Pass, the most streamlined, easy way to do it is still with a Plex Pass. Which brings us to the third one, and arguably the most important one for those that want to take advantage of all of that hardware. If you're someone that has bought a network-attached storage device and you want to use it for Plex, but you want to eke every single drop of potential power out of that system that you've paid for, unfortunately, you're going to need a Plex Pass. One of the most common examples people talk about, myself included, is to do with utilizing hardware transcoding. Now, I'm going to play a file on screen. This file here is known as the Beauty of Taiwan. And if we open up here at the bottom, you can see this file is being converted right now on the fly. There on the bottom left, we can see dark orange here with a light orange. That's playback versus buffering, and ultimately the system is now using its own hardware to convert this file. This is doing it on the fly, and this is utilizing hardware transcoding. So right now, if we open up and minimize this window here, we can see right here in the background we've got the file playing there utilizing hardware transcoding at HW. Now that means that when we're utilizing the hardware on this NAS, we can see resource utilization there. The CPU is being used barely at all. We can break down, we can see that we're utilizing it at 20%, dipping low even further as we use it there. Now, had we not had Plex Pass, we would have had to utilize raw CPU power. What does that mean? Well, the integrated graphics of that CPU is designed to reshape that file on the fly. It's designed to do graphical manipulation there, whereas the rest of the CPU isn't. Now, if we were using a CPU that didn't have integrated graphics at all, we'd have to use raw CPU power. And that is that the CPU which won't be utilizing a component designed for reshaping, will use way more power. It will get hotter, it will limit the utilization of the rest of the system at the same time, and ultimately it will get very hot, utilizing that extra power, meaning increased electricity bills there. Now, that's only if you're going to convert that file, and there's going to be some of you watching this going, well, I'm just not going to I'm not going to downscale it. Why do I need to? Now, I've talked about in other videos, so I'll keep it very brief. Transcoding isn't just about reshaping a file on the fly because you want to watch Avatar on your phone on a ferry in the middle of nowhere. It's also about compression techniques and codecs. Some devices, such as a lot of mobile devices, do not support certain codecs. There's a lot of modern ones, AVI, WNV, even MKV to a point. These formats are largely playable now, but there's still devices out there that don't play them. But the minute you start utilizing slightly more rarer formats, such as utilizing some of the formats for audio there, particularly some of the ones for audiobooks or particularly high-end audio, these MP4A, for example there, FLAC, F-L-A-C, these won't be played on a lot of typical day-to-day devices, but you still want to enjoy the media and you still want to keep the media in its original high-quality format there. That is another example of when compression is required, or at the very least, reshaping of that file so you can enjoy it on your mobile device on that ferry. But more on top of that, what if you're utilizing a device like a smart TV, a PlayStation 5? Some of these devices do not support all of the compression techniques. Compression techniques are, for example, HEVC, highly efficient video codec, or H.265. That is a more modern compression technique that allows that Avatar movie we just discussed, which is presented huge for the cinema, to be compressed right the way down into something small enough to go on a little USB stick or on your TV or whatever. Now, the old one, H.264, was completely open source, free, and everyone could use it. But the new version, funded by multimedia companies, is private. It is licensed, and and it's per device, by the way. So there's a chance that one of the devices streaming that multimedia you're watching does not support HEVC or H.265. Some devices allow you to buy a license to play it, but in a lot of cases, there is no means to add the license onto that client device. Remember, your phone, your TV, your whatever. And the result is, much like you're seeing here on screen, that although I could watch this file, it's an original quality if I was watching it on an HEVC supported device, this, as you can see on the bottom left, is an HEVC file. That means that this laptop, which doesn't have an HEVC license, is forced to convert the file. And that's an example of when you may need transcoding and you didn't even know it. Now, on top of that, it's worth highlighting that when you do utilize, let's close that down there and go back to the dashboard. If you do go into your NAS system here, let's go on the left, and you go into the transcoder option, using the free version, the number of options open to you for the transcoder quality and harnessing the hardware at your disposal will differ. The free version will only allow you to use software transcoding. Again, that's using raw system power to get the job done. But the paid version not only will allow you to actually, and often if you have multiple graphical adapters, select which one you want to use, but on top of that will allow you to what extent you want to utilize it, or only use it for audio, only use it for video. Again, you have to have a Plex pass to do it. And that extends, by the way, to if you want to utilize certain techniques to for this HDR to SDR tone mapping, which maintains the color spectrum of the original media during the course of transcoding and reshaping of that media for converting it either for compression reasons or file format reasons. And the same goes for subtitles, the same goes, that's for hard-coded subtitles, and of course if you want to take advantage of audio media which needs to be reshaped. All of these are things that would allow you, with the use of a Plex pass, to better harness the hardware that your media is living on. But again, if you don't think you're going to need to reshape, if you don't think you've got difficult file formats or compressions, and you're going to be sticking pretty exclusively to video media that doesn't need subtitles because it's in your own language and your ears are great, then none of that you're going to need. And for you users, a Plex pass is a waste of time. And there you go. This has been, do you need a Plex pass, yes or no? Now, do you need any more help? Well, number one, you can head over to NAScompares anytime, and on the right hand side of the screen we've got our free advice section, genuinely free, that you can utilize not only to be directed towards online sources for more free information, but you can go ahead and contact myself and Eddie there, or use our free premium fast track service there if you're in a rush, but generally we get back to everyone in about 3 to 5 days. Now, if you need help choosing the right NAS for Plex Media Server, again, on the right hand side of every page, use the NAS Builder. That will take you to this system here, which developed by Eddie, and this will allow you to build the perfect NAS for your needs, not just Plex but more. So case in point, if we go ahead and we want to choose a 4-bay system, we want to have 20 terabytes of data, we want to have it in 4 bays, we want to have 1 disk of redundancy, and we can put a budget in if we like of 2,000, which is a lot by the way, but don't worry too much about that. From here we can choose what we want the system to run. So in this case we want Plex. We want to be able to access Plex remotely and at least enjoy some high level 4K multimedia. We then say how many users are going to access it, so it's a small family. We can choose the network bandwidth, we can choose more NAS specific stuff, or we can just go ahead and click find NAS, and then immediately it will list NASs that fit our needs. And as you can see there, it even lists up to what level of quality you can enjoy for your multimedia as well. It's as simple as that. But thank you so much for watching. Again, all of those options to help you out. I hope you found this helpful. Like, subscribe, all that usual YouTube nonsense, and otherwise I will see you next time.